Okay, so looking at problem 19 here, I'm not going to do the calculations because it's 10 years, so it probably is worth putting in a spreadsheet. But first one comment, I am in the previous, on problem 16, calculate a weighted average cost of capital and use that to discount the cash flows back to present value, including both the sort of base cash flows and the tax savings cash flows. And as soon as I finished recording the video, I said, hey, that doesn't seem right. Seems like I'm double counting the tax savings because the weighted average cost of capital formula has this factor here, which is reduces 1 minus the tax rate. So the tax rate is always positive. So that factor there is always going to be less than 1. And you multiply it by the the stated rate on the debt. So that bit there is intended to account for the tax savings of using debt rather than equity. And then I also, in the previous problem, explicitly calculated the tax savings, and but then discounted it by the weighted average cost of capital, or I didn't actually figure the WACC, but suggested you do it. And I might have realized there if I'd actually done the calculation. But in any event, looking at your textbook, it appears when you're doing a adjusted present value, you don't use the weighted average cost of capital to discount those cash flows back. You use just the sort of basic all equity cost of capital, or here he calls it opportunity cost of capital. So double check that, but I think that's right. Okay, so I'm just going to talk through this one because it's very similar to 16, really. So we got a project requires a $10 million upfront investment. So time 0 is minus. I'm just going to use millions. At I'm going to call it year 0 is -10, and then there's 1.75 million positive years 1 through 10. And then so those are sort of your basic cash flows. -10 million at time 0, and then 10 cash flows of positive 1.75 million after that, each separated by a year. And he's saying the opportunity cost of capital, you could consider that also the equity cost of capital, I think, but I don't know, that may be a subtle difference there. But anyway, that's the discount rate, and I don't think we're going to compute a WACC in this case. We'll just use the 12% to discount those cash flows back. But the extra step we have to take here is to compute the tax savings associated with different levels of debt. And so this really is just sort of not hard conceptually. You just have to put it in a spreadsheet and do it. Like in scenario A, there'd be $5 million of debt, the interest rate's 8%, and the marginal tax rate's 35%. And then the equal amount of debt will be repaid each year. So it's going to start out, so for first year you'd have $5 million of debt times 8% interest, whatever that is. And then the tax savings 0.35. So 5 million times 0.08 times 0.35 would be the tax savings in that first year. So you add that to the basic cash flow up here, 1.75 million. And then you just need to put in your spreadsheet, the trick here is equal amount of debt will be repaid each year. So that's got to pay off $5 million of debt over 10 years. So it's $500,000 a year that the principal balance will be reduced. So for year 2, it'd be 4.5 million and so forth. And so by the final year 10, there should only be 500,000 outstanding, and then that's paid off at the very, very end of the project. And again, I mentioned this several times, but sometimes the timing can get you a little bit off. Is it the interest, is the debt paid off at the beginning of each year, ending of each year? But I think if you make an assumption that $10 million goes out at time 0, and then at time 1 you get 1.75 million plus whatever the tax savings is, and carry that out for 10 years. I think that'll be okay. And then how does the APV change if the firm incurs an issue cost of $400,000 to require it to raise the $5 million of equity? I think that's, I hope there's not a trick to it I'm not seeing, but that's just this project that cost 10 million now costs 10.4 million. Because that 400,000 is essentially, I'm assuming that happens at time zero, because you gotta pay, I'm assuming you gotta pay that in order to get the money, so that's at time zero. So for me, I'd just, after you got all this put in your spreadsheet, just go put 400,000, 10.4 million. I don't even think you have to do that, because since it's at time, that 400,000 is at time zero, there's no discount applied to it, and so I think it just reduces the APV by 400,000 without even doing any math. But again, I haven't done the math there, but I think that's probably right. Okay, hope that helps.